Well, it's time for part 2.
The following is a production of Corrupted Entertainment in association with The Joe Cronin Show. Listen to other episodes and shows on youtube.com/corruptedpodcast.
Guys, what's up? And if you are watching me today, I will be streaming some video games over on my Joe Cronin Show YouTube channel. But welcome to Corrupted. So let's continue talking about Star Wars and what happened here, because in my last video, I talked about how Star Wars hates all the men in the movie. And it's easy to see what's going on there, for sure. I mean, it'd be if there was a couple things, it'd be like, oh, you're overreacting, you're overthinking it. I wish I was overthinking it or I was overreacting, but I'm not. When you look at all the evidence is clear. If you try to do that same thing with any of the other Star Wars movies, it just doesn't work. But anyway, the problem with this movie is we understand the director's goal in basically sort of being like, well, okay, and by the way, spoilers, everybody, in case needed to be said. I don't know why it would. I almost fell over. I'm in my basement, and I just tripped over an extension cord. Okay, so, you're going to pay off Snoke, right? We're going to maybe get some more development, get some more story, and, nope, no more story. Snoke's gone, so there is nothing to Snoke at all. So there is no payoff there. What's going to happen with Luke? Holy crap! In a way, we did sort of get a little bit of a payoff on Luke in a way, but it still was left controversial. Like, even if the rest of the movie was amazing, and everything was really, really good up until the end, and you maybe just didn't agree with Luke disappearing. But let's even talk about Luke. Luke is gone for all. For argument's sake here, for the most part, Luke is gone. I mean, besides coming back as a ghost and whatever else, Carrie Fisher is actually gone in real life, and Snoke is gone. Rey's parents apparently are nobody. Unless these things were lies. So there is no anticipation for the next movie. There is no wonder if and what if. There's none of that. There is zero, and not only that. For 2 years, we were wondering these questions. People were asking themselves these questions. And this is going to result in no payoff. I can't imagine the director thinking to himself, I've got an idea. Let's just everything you think we're going to throw a twist at you. But the problem is, there is no payoff then. There is absolutely zero payoff. How can you be sitting there thinking, well, the audience are going to love when we pay off nothing? That never happens. I do a lot of wrestling stuff on my other channel, on the Joe Cronin Show, not here on Corrupted. But on the Joe Cronin Show, other than monetize this, which is a late-night shock jock type show, which I love doing, but the rest of the channel is wrestling. This is like wrestling storylines being set up for months, and then a payoff not happening. Now, usually when the payoff doesn't happen, most of the time it's because nobody cared and the story fizzled out, so they just kind of dumped it. We never found out, what was going to happen when these two guys who, whatever happened between them happened. But when the audience is craving, this would be like, and if you're not a wrestling fan, you don't care, you don't know, but this would be like if Stone Cold Steve Austin and McMahon had all that build-up, and then they never really had a meeting in the ring or a match that meant anything. You're supposed to deliver a payoff when you start telling a story. You know what I mean? And there's no payoff. All the fans wondering what was going to happen. It's not a payoff if you just kill somebody before you answer any questions about them. It's not a payoff when a question that people have been wondering about for 2 years is basically just worthless and pointless and just isn't there. There's no answer to it. It didn't mean anything. So those were the two biggest issues for a lot of people. And this movie essentially just kind of, when this movie's over, for the most part, you're kind of just left feeling like it was a whole reset. It's not even, at the end of Force Awakens, you were like, oh my God, we need to know these things about all these characters and what's going to happen. We can't wait. Well, now that this movie is over, I find myself thinking, I don't see a cliffhanger here. I don't find myself wondering about anything. The only thing I find myself kind of wondering about is what are they going to do with Carrie Fisher? And that's not good. What are they going to do with a person that's dead's character? That's not a cliffhanger. And there is zero payoff in this movie for people, for the most part. And nobody gets no all the things that you were wondering about. So I just can't believe that a director, someone in a creative process who's supposed to be kind of in touch with fans and in touch with a story and how stories work, could sit there and think, I'm going to be a big troll. And that's not going to make people upset. I mean, this guy pulled a fucking Andy Kaufman for all, you know what I mean, for what it's like he himself is sitting back laughing at all of us, I feel like. That's what it feels like. And I can't believe that he didn't know that that was going to happen, or did he not care? I don't know. Oh, you like Poe? Well, you know, he's going to be an imbecile in this movie. He's going to be an imbecile who can't really do anything right, and he's a moron. And this female purple hair girl is going to just be magical and know how to do everything right and sacrifice herself. So she's gone now. She was just a wasted character. So purple-haired chick came in and is gone now, and she saved the day, but no one cares about her. So in the end, it didn't matter. Why didn't Poe save the day? Why didn't Finn save the day? Why didn't Leia save the day? Why didn't fucking Admiral Akbar save the day? Why didn't somebody save the day who meant something? And I get that sometimes in stories you introduce a character in who's new, and you can kill them off, and it's not a main character. But nobody connected with Laura Dern's character? Nobody connected with her because she just showed up, and she kind of sucked. You were kind of, as fans, rooting for Poe to be like, hey, you know, throw her off the bridge and do what you want to do. You know what you're doing. And they just set everything up so backwards. It's just so backwards. And I feel like my last video was all about sort of exposing the SJW side of the movie and the attack on men that was clearly present in the movie. But that became the focal point of that video. And if you didn't agree with that, then all my other points became invalid. So therefore, I wanted to bring this up now. Because even if you're someone out there who thinks that I was crazy, you know, I have some friends that absolutely agree with me, and I have some friends who actually told me they think I'm crazy. And it's like, I can't believe that they think I'm crazy. I don't think this is even close to the worst example of this type of stuff that's been going on in movies. I still think, I sat through the movie and didn't even pick up on some of these things. I watched the whole movie and was like, and it wasn't till later when I started hearing other people's reviews and I started looking at the characters and what they did and what their function in this movie was that I said, oh my God, man, really did that again. But all that aside, the basic idea of no payoff and where do we go from here? And in the end, you're left with the same sort of situation as always. And nobody really grew. And people are talking about Rey as a... you know, the Mary Sue, the Mary Jane, they're kind of right. There was so much growth in all the other characters in the original Star Wars. There's really not a lot of growth for her. She just does things. She's just amazing at things, which is very similar to Anakin's character in Phantom Menace. She's very much like that. That's why you would think that she maybe is a Skywalker in many ways. But the weird thing is Anakin, you know, has all these midichlorians or whatever it is in the first movie, and he's got the Force, and he just seems to do everything right. That's all. He's just perfect at everything. Well, that's what Rey is like. But that's not what Luke was like. So you could see how she could not be a Skywalker. But what you could see is maybe Rey is another, you know, person who was impregnated, somebody was impregnated by the Force. Because that's right, Anakin's mother gave birth to Anakin, and she said there was no father. So did this same thing happen with Rey? So there's a question, but they're not really hinting at that anywhere in the movies to say, like, you know, that's what happened. You know, if you were to hint at something like that, you may say, well, you know, you had a mother. You know, you would have had someone reveal to Rey in the movie, I knew your parents, or parent. And it's like, oh, you knew one of my parents. Yeah, well, I knew there was a mother, but I never heard of you having a father. And then they could have brought in, you know, but then now you're opening the can of worms of something that people hated from the prequels. So why would you open that can of worms? But she is resemblant of Anakin. So, I mean, but these are all things that aren't very interesting anyway, for the most part. You had an interest before in The Force Awakens. We wanted this movie to be different than Force Awakens and different than most other Star Wars movies. That's true. But we also wanted a good movie. Now, a lot of people keep saying these stupid things to me in comments sometimes. A lot of people agree with me, but there's a few people that don't agree and stuff, and a lot of times they say, well, you didn't like The Force Awakens because it wasn't original, and now you don't like this. Oh, you'll never be happy. I liked The Force Awakens, you dumbass. I enjoyed The Force Awakens. I said that. I said I loved that they sort of they brought back what Star Wars was without doing a reboot, and they sort of reminded us what it was again, but in a modern way, but also making it match the time, in those movies. So I enjoyed that. The only slight letdown was when the movie was over. You felt like, you kind of heard like when a band comes out with a single that's really good, right? And then they come out with another single, like their next CD, like they sort of copy what they tried to do. Remember Eminem? Eminem came out with the Real Slim Shady thing, the Real Slim Shady, Please Stand Up after that, and then he kind of did these, every Eminem album in the beginning, in the 90s and the early 2000s, they all had that like one kind of funny poppy song so they could play it on the radio that was like a silly song. He always kind of led with that, and then he started to change after the fourth or fifth album, but you know what I mean? Like, he always had that one, and that's like the familiarity that people can, like, oh, there it is again, that's what he does, and now I'm going to buy the CD. Well, that's what Force Awakens was like. Oh, yes, this is what Star Wars does. I've seen this. But it was good, The only thing you could be left saying after Force Awakens is, like, I thought that was good, but, and I think things did come too easy to Rey. That is a criticism in the movie that I would give. Things did seemingly come a little too easy for Rey, almost like they were setting her up to be so powerful it was insane. And they really made it seem like at the end of Force Awakens you felt kind of like, wow, Rey has the definite upper hand, and she's had it since the whole movie began. Really, Kylo Ren. The only thing that kind of you got going for you is you want to see Kylo Ren like murdered because he killed Han Solo, so you're like pissed. So that's the only thing. So you're like, good. But at the end, I'm surprised that it went to where it went to at the end. When Mark Hamill talks about how when he read the script of Force Awakens and the lightsaber flew away from Kylo Ren in the snow, and then Rey caught it, I think that should have been Luke. I think he was right. I think the only thing that stinks is the ending of Force Awakens is so good when she climbs that mountain and hands it to Luke like, we need you. I love that. I think I love that more. So I'm sort of happy that they did not have Luke be there in that moment to grab that lightsaber. But it would have made sense because he could have fought off Kylo, who ran away because Luke is too powerful for him still. You know what I mean? And you could have had, you could see that it seems like Kylo's a little more powerful than Rey, or maybe Rey's more powerful than Kylo, but she doesn't know how to control anything yet. So Kylo is still better than her, and he may have killed her. So Luke shows up, and Kylo Ren. What the fuck am I saying? See what this movie's got me all messed up. Kylo Ren has to run away, and Luke is there to save the day. And you would have thought maybe you would have had him show down with the Emperor or something at some point, and you could have even done what he did in this movie. But you would have spoiled and lost that ending that was in Force Awakens where she hands him the lightsaber, which I thought was really good. Now, controversial thing could be you could have had Leia show up on the planet for some reason. Like, she was like, I'm going to help them. And, someone say, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? She's like, it's been a few years since I've, been in action, done something. I don't know. You could have had Leia be holding the lightsaber, and you could have had her use Force powers or something like that. But we never seen Leia use Force powers and be Force sensitive, so I think that would have come off goofy. So I think that's good that they kept Leia away from all that stuff. Problem is then they didn't in this movie, and they literally had her do the Statue of Liberty, Mary Poppins deal. So what do you do? Who would, because that moment where the lightsaber flies into, Luke's hand would have been really cool. And it was a really cool moment at the end of that movie. And so it's hard to say because they got that cool moment where Rey got to hold the lightsaber and it was like, oh shit, like she's going to fight back. And they sort of had her, because at the beginning, Kylo, at that fight at the end of the movie, Kylo Ren throws her like into a tree and like she smacks into a tree. So they are setting it up there like, oh God, poor little girl, like she just got smashed into a tree. You know, now Finn is going to have to try to defend her, you know what I mean? And Finn fights with him a little bit and then he gets tore up, right? But then she comes up and then she's calling the lightsaber to her. I desperately though in the theater wanted Luke to show up. And I suppose you could have kept with this story if you had Luke show up, go away again. And maybe they could have said, like, we don't know where Luke went. He was there. He was here somehow. We don't know how he was here. But he was there. We saw him. And you could have even had him be a hologram. But none of us know that yet, right? None of us know that Luke is a hologram yet or whatever. And he's back on that rock still. So at the end of the movie, they still have to get the map. And they still have to go find him. And she has to climb the mountain and then hand him the lightsaber again. Like, hey, like, we're serious about this. And then he stares at her still. You know what I mean? They maybe could have done that. That maybe could have happened. You can tell me that's dumb. I don't know. It would have been less impactful, but you would have had all these different, so you would have had, you know, and he could have showed up there maybe in spirit with the hologram because he felt Han Solo's death. He felt Han Solo died. So he showed up there, and then you could have even, you know, I mean, you just could have done so much with that, and then when he does it in this movie, been like, oh shit, now we know why he was able to be there, you know what I mean, so quickly like that, and then I don't know. So I'm just throwing things all over the place here. But the problem is, and the point of this video is, not to give you how I would have written it, how I would have booked it, because I'm not very good. I'm just telling you I'm not. You can tell by what I just said. But the point is there's no payoff, and it comes back to that. There is no payoff. And when you get people riled up for 2 years to wonder and to want to know, and then basically troll them when they get to the theater, you have to know that people are going to be pissed. Now, one of those things maybe could have not been answered. But the fact that you didn't continue to develop a character's story at all is disappointing and disheartening. And a big question that people were looking for to not be answered is also disheartening. And multiple other things that were wrong with this movie. Now, the only possibilities in the next one are that there, you know, somebody is her parents. You know what I mean? And they may have, maybe they were going to reveal that maybe Leia was going to be like, I'm your mother. I mean, I don't know, dude. I am so lost with this Star Wars. I loved it and hated it at the same time. I was in the theater with some chills at some points. And then some points I was literally almost laughing out loud. And then there was other points where I thought I was dreaming, and I wished I was dreaming because I couldn't believe, like my jaw almost opened up because I couldn't believe what I was seeing in a Star Wars movie, and not because you can't do different things in a Star Wars movie, and not that we can't go somewhere different. I am not one of these like old fuddy-duds, you know what I mean? Even though I am 33 and I did grow up with these movies classically, I'm not trying to keep... If you just took out a few things that really sucked, I would have a lot easier time with this movie. For instance, instead of saving the animals and Rose with those cheesy lines about, it's all so worth it now, or this is why it was worth it, or whatever she said, like, she sucks. If you could have changed some of her stupid dialogue, and you could have maybe saved the kids, like those slave kids, instead of leaving them there, you got rid of the animals, but the kids are still slaves there. So nothing was accomplished. It would have made sense more if Rose and Finn were like, we got to get these kids off this planet, or we got to get these kids out of here. You know, so then all of a sudden they had 2 missions, which were to get this codebreaker guy and also save these kids. And it would have made way more sense if they came back and they were like, you know, well, we got we failed at our mission, but we got all these kids. You know what I mean? And remember, at the end, they sort of, I think they showed that the kid had the Force, because he controlled the broom or whatever, and he was using the Force. And it was like, you could have still done something with that kid, when no one was looking, that he was able to control something, and it's like, oh man, that kid has the force, that person has the force, but. And maybe they'll do that in the third movie. It feels like they're going to go back to that planet, which is just, because why else would they end the movie with that kid, and what were they doing? Like, just very strange. And that whole story was just a waste of time. And I just don't get why. And like Rose saving Finn, well, because love, and like, what? It's just those are a couple. The joke at the beginning, the phone call with Poe, and the just, I'm waiting for your mom. Like, that was weird. So, like, I would have taken those out. I would have taken I probably wouldn't have had Luke throw the lightsaber over his back. But I kind of get why he did. And again, like, I get the interesting character they tried to create with Mark Hamill, with Luke, with, like, you know what I mean? Like, he sensed this scary power from Kylo, and he was like thinking about killing him, like, I'm thinking, like, maybe I should just, like, oh, I'm scared of this, maybe I should do something. But it's like, that's not Luke. With all the power and the wisdom and the way he was left at Return of the Jedi, I just can't picture Luke being like, maybe I'll have to kill this guy. He would just never give up. He would never stop trying to teach and do the right thing. Based on the character that we saw. Why would he be there doing that? I mean, it's a great story for a character. I agree with that about what Ryan did. What he did was very compelling with the character, I think. But the problem is it goes against and away from what Jedi do and what Luke had become. That's the problem that doesn't quite sit right with you. Even the idea that he would sit there and think about it. You know what I mean? And I get that they're trying to also build like some confusion and sympathy with Kylo Ren, which makes him more interesting. It's like all the things they did were sort of the right, like I get what they were doing. It all made sense with what they were sort of thinking of doing and what they did. Storytelling wise, it can make sense. I do understand it. The problem is it didn't fit quite right into what had already been established. That was the issue. And that's why the movie just feels bizarre to me. I mean, maybe Luke is a little bit of a different person. Again, why is there a map leading to him? Why was there a map leading to him in the first movie if he didn't want to be found? That was never answered. That's just ignored. Just so many plot holes, so much stuff just done because, and I'm just, it's almost unbelievable. This will definitely be one of the worst Star Wars movies that I ever saw, that I'll probably watch over and over again still, because the ending, I think, is really cool. And, there's a lot of moments in it that are good, but it's just so funny, man. It's, I can't remember a buzz like this other than back when Phantom Menace came out. And it's funny because I didn't see Phantom Menace in the theater. I was a huge Star Wars fan as a kid, but around the time of Phantom Menace, my life kind of sucked, and I had someone, my mother's boyfriend was living with us still, and we just didn't. I was just more worried about getting away from my house and being with my friends, and they weren't into the Star Wars stuff at the time. And I remember I didn't want to go because I think I was asked to go to it, and he wanted to go to it or something, and then I said no just because I didn't want to go to the theater. But then years later, I saw it on DVD. But I can remember the buzz around that time being very similar to the buzz right now about this. I think it probably was maybe a little more negative then, but it was similar. I think it was, if there was actually a Rotten Tomatoes back then, the audience score probably, in fact, we could probably look it up on Rotten Tomatoes now. What does Rotten Tomatoes give? What is the audience score for Phantom Menace? Did I say Phantom Forces earlier because I was thinking of my kids' Skylanders? 99 Rotten Tomatoes. But I wonder what it would have been at the time if there was a Rotten Tomatoes. Wow, 59% liked it. 59% of the audience say they liked it. and about 53% right now for Return of the what are we on? Oh, The Last Jedi. So very similar type scores, to be honest. That is very interesting, guys. Well, there's some more background and talk about Star Wars. What do you guys think about what I've said? I'm certainly nowhere near right about many of the things I say, but I am right about my raw feelings that something wasn't quite right about this movie, for sure, other than the provable things and the plot holes. And I again gave the movie a 6 out of 10, maybe a 5 out of 10, and that's one of the lower scores I've given a Star Wars movie. But what do you guys give it? Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the movie. Maybe you loved it. Maybe you hated it. I don't know. Let me know. We'll talk to you guys in the next video. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on my next video. Plus, hit the bell so you get alerted about it as well. See you next time, guys. My name is Joe Cronin from The Joe Cronin Show over here on Corrupted Entertainment, and we'll see you next time.
The following is a production of Corrupted Entertainment in association with The Joe Cronin Show. Listen to other episodes and shows on youtube.com/corruptedpodcast.